Hi, my name is Bonnie, and I'm happy to be here today. One of the reasons I could make it is because Monday I went to work and found out I don't have a job, at least for right now. My company is hired by Department of Transportation in Detroit. We provide rides for persons with disabilities and seniors. We take them to dialysis and doctors and church, things like that. Well, last night on the radio, I heard the owner of our company saying that DDOT has not paid him since last December. And meanwhile, I heard that the director of DDOT said that they are negotiating in putting a big effort forward to negotiate the contract. So I, quite frankly, myself and all the drivers that I work with kind of caught up in this, and it was a surprise. Now, I work for a black-owned company, and all the employees except me are black, so I just don't know quite what to do next.
Yeah. Thank you for your, first of all, I'm sorry to hear about your misfortune last night. Alice, I suspect, though, as a lawyer, I suspect, though, that these stories are not all that uncommon, that people are hearing all kind of news that they really don't want to hear, sometimes over the radio.
Yes. As a civil rights and human rights lawyer, I do this kind of litigation. And what we find many times is that there may be a layoff of certain employees, but there will be a rehiring. And I would suggest that if you are not one of the folks rehired, that you look to see who was hired, because that could very well be
Discrimination of some kind, yeah.
That's right.
Thank you very much for your comment. Yes, sir.
My name is Dean, and I'm a podcaster, and I've always admired your work. I want you now, you've finished 5 shows, I want you to hold up a mirror to us here in Detroit. Tell us what you see. Tell us what you think we're doing great. Tell us what we need to work on. And can I get you on my podcast, too?
I'll try to do the podcast if I can. Okay. The short answer to your question, which I thank you for, is what we heard echoed in this panel a moment ago, that I am here because of the resiliency of the residents of this great city. I've said many times all week that I've been coming here since I was a child. I grew up down the road in Indiana, and our idea of a vacation, because we couldn't afford to go anywhere else with 10 kids, my mom, my dad, and Big Mama would get in the station wagon with us 10 kids, put some gas in it, and we'd come to Detroit for the day, and that was my being able to go see the world. When I wanted to get out of the cornfields of Indiana, Detroit was my window onto the world, the culture, the art, the people, the diversity, the music, the food. This was Greek town. This was my window to the world. So I've been loving this city since I was a kid. Went to college at Indiana University, came here every year as a member of the debate team at IU to a national debate tournament every year on this campus at Wayne State. So I've been here, I was here every year during my college career. And as a professional, of course, I've come here any number of times to do the kind of work that we're doing now. So I love the city. That's the main reason why I'm here. And as I've said also repeatedly this week, that it's clear to me that the city is turning around, but I want to know who it's turning around for. Turning around for whom? And because I live in Los Angeles and I've seen this story, LA didn't file bankruptcy, but I work for the mayor of LA, Tom Bradley, and I know what it's like for a city to rebuild its downtown corridor, but for downtown to essentially become an island unto itself rather than a bridge to the rest of the city. So I want to make sure that doesn't happen in the city of Detroit. And what I see when I look out in this audience are people who are concerned about the city, people who want to see this city come back, people who want to see the city become all that it can be, but people who want to see that done equitably, done fairly, and done justly. And there are a lot of philanthropic organizations who are involved in the revitalization of the city, along with Mr. Gilbert and other business persons. A lot of philanthropic organizations involved as well. And I always make a distinction between justice and charity. Detroiters don't want charity. They want justice. And those are two very different things. And I thank you. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Dr. Mike Neal. I work on several programs in revitalizing in the cities or urban community. Maybe you can help me with this, Tavis. One of the biggest problems I see is the social equity issue. And the only way you're going to me, resolve that is we got to bridge this digital divide gap. And the mayor of Detroit is the only mayor has really just brought the word out, digital divide. And if we don't have equal access to the internet, most of your youth are leaving this city trying to be entrepreneur and doing my research, they're having the same problem. They don't have access to the internet.
I take your point.
I'm glad you mentioned the digital divide, because Dan Gilbert, our owner of part of the city, he's going to start he's starting his own internet company, Rocket Fiber, which goes 100 times faster than residential customers, and it's only for downtown. Now, there's a rumor that it may trickle out to the community at some point, but I'm not confident that he's also going to have his own cable network. So, I mean, it's like Rockefeller all over again. So I'm not sure that the digital divide conversation, I mean, there are places like Allied Media, which is grassroots, and, you know, I'm part of the Digital Justice Coalition, of course. And so those ways we're working with discotheques to merge the digital divide, but it's not going to come from the government. It's not.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm Donald Patterson. I'm a U.S. Army veteran. And what I want to say is that before these facilities and departments of Detroit start beating up on us as the citizens, and I'm not advocating that those who owe bills shouldn't pay them, but there's infrastructure that needs to be repaired. And there's vacant houses where you see running water coming out of freezing. In my old neighborhood where I grew up in, it's dilapidated, and there's a high rate of crime, but there's also illegal usage of utilities and so forth. And then you see a lot of the supply pipes that bring the water in are devastating. They're old, they're crumbling, and you can see it with the streets. They're bubbling up through the streets. So that needs to be repaired. Those type things and other problems that persist in Detroit needs to be addressed prior to beating up on the residents.
I hear that concern. Quick question here. Thank you for your comment. That raises the question. We talked about this a bit earlier in the week, and I think when Stephen Henderson was here from the paper, about this. I saw a piece he wrote last Sunday about Prop 1 and this 1%, this 1 cent tax that may go down in defeat at the polls here. But it's fascinating for me how there are a lot of people who feel this way, but I think people have such fatigue with the dysfunction in government that even something like this, we're only talking 1 penny here, that might make a difference to fix the streets, for example, might not even pass.
One of the things I'd like to add to that is the fact that we, the committee of several dozen attorneys around the country, and now we have an international team of lawyers working on the water issue. We're working on national legislation that will cover this sort of affordability issue. Safe water. Flint has a problem with its water looking like it came out of the toilet. And we're also working on state legislation on affordability as well, which would address the issues and create funding sources. There are statutes right now that the state could ask for from the federal government. There is money there. These things have not been asked for. The local government could ask for various monies from the state. That hasn't happened. All of that has to happen so the burden does not get carried on the back of those most unable to pay.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello, Tavis. Earlier in the week, you spoke either on air or on the after session about the turnaround of Los Angeles. And in your witnessing of that turnaround, I have a couple of questions. One is, what sort of timeline did that happen on? And second question is, what large lesson can we in Detroit take with us and use from that turnaround of Los Angeles?
Two very good questions. The quick answer is it took a while. I worked for Tom Bradley. I was a student at Indiana University, as I mentioned earlier. In 1985, I went out to do an internship for him. Came back to Indiana to graduate, moved there in 87 to work for the mayor. And it was in the late 80s that we really started this downtown effort, started to revitalize downtown. When I went to work for Tom Bradley in 87, the tallest building in downtown was City Hall, and it's only 22 floors. It was the tallest building in downtown. Now we got a skyline and skyscrapers, and and now like I said, the Lakers are there, the Clippers are there. We got restaurants and Disney Hall, Concert Hall, and everything. So all the energy in LA is in downtown right now. But I started with the mayor in '87. This has just happened like literally in the last decade. So it takes a while for these things to happen. They don't. To your brilliant question, one, they don't happen overnight. And number two, the only lesson I would add to your question is what I tried to intimate earlier, which is that you have to be mindful of these things and you have to hold people accountable, because if you're not careful, they will build up downtown and forget about everybody else.
How you doing, Tavis? My name is Eric Thompson. How we got here is really one of the things that I really take time to study on. And I noticed in Judge Keith's book that he explained the 1943 race riot. We like, for some reason, to stop at 67 and look at that as the catalyst for the exodus of suburbanites moving out. 43, to me, though, really emphasizes why Detroit has such a difficult time coming back. Redlining in Detroit, which is something that was very rarely talked about, is still prevalent. And this is something that we have to address. So me and myself, I had a small business. I opened it up in Detroit. I took my money, built it, but couldn't sustain it for the same reason. Couldn't get a loan. So when people said, well, we need to open up black businesses, yes, we do. But you need capital to sustain it outside of that.
That's right.
And that's why the comeback, so-called comeback, has not affected outside of the downtown area.
Yeah, I take your point. I couldn't agree more.
Hello, Tavis.
Hello.
I'm Diane Anderson, and
Hi,
I'd
Diane.
like to share with you a quote from Judge Stephen Rhodes last October, when he was ordering the water of ordinary citizens to be shut off. He said, quote, that there is no fundamental enforceable right to free or affordable water, just as there is no such affordable right to other necessities of life, such as shelter, food, and medical care. Tavis, the reality is we have something at international law called the International Bill of Rights. It's composed of 3 instruments: the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and the International Covenant on Economic, Cultural, and Social Rights. America is unique in that it is the only Western nation, and one of only, I believe it's 6 nations in the entire United Nations that will not sign that document. And I believe there's a reason for that. I lived 30 years in Australia, where I was very active in politics. I have dual citizenship. And America is also unique in that, unlike Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Great Britain, and every European country, East and West, we have never elected socialist or communist to government. In this country, it is capitalism, and still more capitalism. And when you can only discuss the economic order, the political order in terms of capitalism, you are always going to have equality, because there will never be an alternative. So I guess my comment would be, I would hope that in the course of these debates over the next decade or so, we start to at least bring socialism out of the closet, particularly for a country that says how much they love Jesus, and they remember that the message...
That's powerful.
That the message of historic Jesus is basically the golden rule. He admonishes you, you are your brother's keeper.
That's right.
And he tells you to create the kingdom of God on earth.
I think, first of all, I thank you for that wonderful, please, thank you. I thank you for the wonderful. There are certain things in this country that we just don't see or regard as fundamental human rights. The right to food, the right to water, and the right to a place to live, just shelter. We in this country, just for whatever reason, have never gotten around to seeing those things as just fundamental rights: food and water and a place to stay. So you're right. We got some work to do, but I thank you for saying that. And thank you for reminding us of that. Thank you.
Byron Mims, president of the Cranswick Neighborhood Organization. Real quickly, the biggest travesty of the water situation is that Detroit is surrounded by the world's largest freshwater reserves, our Great Lakes. So everyone needs to think about that for a moment. Real quickly, I agree with Sister Petty and Brother Malik in terms of our vision for our neighborhoods. Our neighborhood, I had the mayor at our house on the 6th of March. And you're right, we share with them our vision. Our vision was to deal with the water situation. First of all, we need to vie for federal dollars. And we need to, Debbie Stabenow had on her website a condition for the renewable energy grants for seniors. We need to push our seniors to get on solar, to totally get off the grid so that they can offset that water. So that's the thing. We need to develop that vision, as you've mentioned, and we're working on that. We're partnering with churches. We're working on our 501c3. It's pending with the federal government, and we're working with churches with 501c's and also CDCs, and we're vying for federal dollars because the city, people want to plant gardens, but we want to replace homes because our narrative is different than what the governor says. We feel like Detroit was destabilized with drugs deliberately after the civil rights movement and ultimately overthrown vis-a-vis bankruptcy. So you're right. Vision is what's needed. I believe we definitely have that. So I just wanted to share that.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you, brother. All right.
Yes, my name is Kathleen. I wanted to say again about the redlining in Detroit. The concern that we're having is that the auto insurance and also home insurance is outrageous. And to be able to afford to pay for both of those and also all your other bills is just unrealistic. And it needs to be a change. I mean, I don't understand why it's continued in this way, but how do you pay your bills and also do that? I wanted to add another point is about education. It's about people going to college, spending that kind of money to go to college and get your degree or to get skills trained, and then when you come out, you can't get a job. These are older people as well as younger. So that's something that needs to be addressed in the colleges, universities. There needs to be a change. Wake up and say, yes, people have done these different things. Right. They've gotten their training. They've gotten their certifications. Get a job to everyone who's put in the time and the years for what they work for.
Okay, my name is Delbert King, and just like the previous speaker just said, I was thinking about education because it seemed like with all these school closings, all the kids are in the streets now, and just like they don't have nowhere to go or they don't know what to do. And as a young black man myself, you know, I'm trying to figure out what we gonna do. You know, it's like it's 9 o'clock in the morning. Why are y'all outside? Y'all supposed to be in school. Where the parents at? I know they probably working and can't watch them. They gotta do what they have to do to contend for the family, and then the water shut offs, and it's like what. Detroit coming back? When? What's popping? What you talking?
I take your point, and I thank you, sir. Yes, next.
Hi, my name is Hazel. My comment is more on a psychological level, emotional level. I think that in America we need to break down the labels, how we refer to each other, relate to each other. There are no white people. There are no black people. When we refer to each other along these lines, what happens is when we look at the dictionary and we see how white is defined, they're boosted to a level of superiority. We're degraded to a level less than. We need to break down these labels. It's sad.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate you coming. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Amani, and I attend the Detroit School of Fine and Performing Arts. Thank you for visiting recently.
Great school.
But last year, a couple of our teachers and our principal were pushed away, and an emergency principal was brought in. And after the first 3 months of this current school year, the emergency principal left, and now one of our administrators is struggling as an acting principal. And my question is, do you think this movement to improve Detroit will help schools like mine and having an organized and justified staff positions?
That's a good question. Schools, let's get into the schools. Sure.
I mean, if you've seen, nothing has shown that emergency managers running public schools works. If you look at Highland Park and other cities and what have you, they've had to replace them numerous times. So there is no clear evidence just because Lansing calls the shots that they're actually going to come send some troops over here to take care of the problem. That has not resolved into the problem. So it's much deeper and much more. I sit on a new Detroit board where we're addressing this issue. We're coming out with some type of a system that we can present to the governor to incorporate that in his overall.
It comes out on Monday, right?
I believe
comes
so.
Out Monday.
I believe so.
Thank you for your question. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Camille Johnson. That's my daughter, by the way.
All right.
I let her stay out of school.
You're doing good. You're doing good.
I let her skip school today for this because I thought it was important. I live on a block with 6 abandoned houses, boarded up. They're fine houses, nothing wrong, but they lost them for taxes, water shut off. I can't let my kids play outside because I'm afraid of squatters and who's in these abandoned houses. My kids' school don't have appropriate books. They're Detroit public school students, appropriate tissue, toiletries. My question is, to me, it's not about black and white. It is about rich and poor right now. It is about the rich pushing out the poor. We have no middle class in Detroit anymore. There is no middle class. And my question is, do you feel that the bankruptcy of Detroit was on purpose, intentionally, to push the poor out, and so that corporate America and capitalism could come back into Detroit. Detroit is going to make a comeback before a profit, and they're pushing the poor out.
I thought I got in trouble for my questions. That's a strong question. Reverend, you want to respond?
Absolutely. I think the bankruptcy, the financial crisis in the city was contrived in large part. It was structural. There were structural issues for sure. But the emergency that was created in order to force the bankruptcy was done by the state, by withholding funds from the city that had been agreed upon. There were a whole range of things, union agreements that had been worked out that the governor refused to allow to come to the actual table. The bankruptcy was set up and was rushed into. The city of Detroit did not declare bankruptcy. It was declared by the emergency manager and the governor, and for their purposes.
Speaking of judges, Judge Rhodes, who was referenced earlier, was a guest on this program on Tuesday night. His thought, Reverend and Alice, his comment to me was that he thought that the city should have filed, not just should have filed, but should have filed sooner. He thought they should have filed in 2005, not in 2013.
If I could say, the water department actually paid $536 million for a swap where the banks got huge money the year before.
Right.
We asked that the city sue them. There's actually a theory where you can claw that money back. Right. They haven't. That money alone, as well as the money that should have come from the state, would have got us out of the need to file any type of bankruptcy. Right. And lastly, there's a report by Demos, Mr. Tuberville, that lays out point by point how we were forced into bankruptcy in a very systematic way. It was not something that just happened because we weren't paying our bills.
Tavis, if I may, I was the plaintiff's counsel for the NAACP Detroit, which is the largest office in the country. We sued under PA 4036, the bankruptcy basically statute. And what's so unfortunate about that is that more than half of African Americans in the state have literally lost their right to vote to local elections. And yes, we understand that it needed some kind of mechanism in order to file bankruptcy to get this lifted billions of dollars off the weight of the city of Detroit in order to move forward. I'm okay with that, but you should never do it at the sake of losing people's fundamental right to vote and having a voice in the future of the city of Detroit.
I was struck that when you had Judge Rhodes on, he talked about the bankruptcy without ever mentioning the banks. And that's really what it was about. The same banks that ate the city out from below with predatory subprime loans also had a financial grip on the city. And that's where the pension money went, that's where the water money went, was to banks that had illegal loans, and he knew they were illegal. He asked the emergency manager about that in court. Why don't you sue? You could either sue to get the money back or file criminal charges against these banks.
We look at Dan Gilbert for revitalization when he was Quicken Loans. I mean, he's responsible for a lot of the crises. So, I mean, that's another thing to think about.
Yes, sir. Right quick. I'm running out of time.
Mr. Tavis,
yes.
Glad to be in Detroit.
Thank you, sir.
The resilience of Detroit is, if you take any city, Pacific Coast, Gulf Coast, Atlantic Coast, and take their ports, they would die. Detroit is one of the cities that's been resilient without our ports. We got all this water, and the governors back before Engler, nobody's learned how to use the water ports for the city of Detroit.
Take your point. Yes.
Hello. I'm Lila Cabell, and I have the honor of carrying on the work of Rosa Parks. And I want to comment on your comments because you made me think of Mrs. Parks in terms of the way she carried herself. She was always about the we and not about me. And in this city, the loss of compassion for people has really, really, really been just egregious. We have people dying because of the racism in this fight and the economics and the capitalism in this fight. And what really is very, very important is that what's happening in Detroit is not a Detroit issue. It's an issue globally.
That's right.
So everybody in the country, as they look at Detroit, needs to look at, as Martin Luther King said, they're coming for you next. And so we have to lift up and care about one another in a different way than we have in the past. And Mrs. Parks was always concerned about people who were poor. And that's what we're dealing with now, is the reality of what it means to be poor. And because poverty typically has a black face on it, but the reality is that poverty is not just a black issue.
No, not at all. Yeah.
And so when we look at that, Dr. King died because he was trying to connect the issue with white people who were poor. And we are having that same issue now, and people are dying because of it. So in the spirit of Rosa Parks, we have to do what Charity Hicks said, is wage love, and change this system by waging love.
The church said amen? All right.
Good afternoon, Tavis.
Good
It's
evening.
good to see you. I came back here from Florida, moved away, came back here from Florida, one of the richest places it is, you know, where you see yachts, homes starting at $3 million up, just like you see burnout houses here. But it's no place you can come and get a better value for real estate than what you can in Detroit. And people all over the U.S. make Detroit a bad place, but come here, get yourself some real estate, fix up things, and start trusting each other, because Detroit has been somewhat brainwashed to think that, okay, we can't trust each other. But if you start trusting each other and showing these young men ways to work and use their skills and develop trades, man, we got a gold mine we're sitting on here. So develop it and continue doing what you're doing, Tavis, because I really
I'm
respect
with you.
that.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Last one. You are last.
Okay. I want to thank you for being here. And I just have a couple of things I want to talk about. When Big Brother is watching, who is Big Brother? Where can I get information to know who's watching us? And where's our safety coming from in the communities?
Yeah.
I need to know that, too, because it seems like a separation between, it's like a lot, when events go on downtown, we see the police presence a lot. But when there's things going on in the community, where are the police? Where's the safety in the communities and everybody that's being pushed out? That's what I want to address.
It's a very good question. Anybody? Alice, you first.
One of the things we haven't talked about this afternoon is the issue of voting. We have to hold our leaders accountable. If we don't vote and get people in office at the national, state, and local level that are going to be accountable to our communities, that is fundamental. And if you had transparency of government, we would be able to go to our leaders and say, what's that we're looking at up in the sky?
I mean, her question is very, very legitimate. Is there anybody on this panel as concerned as she is about who's watching y'all?
Yeah, I'm extremely concerned about it. And this is really not a new phenomenon. This has been going on for the last 30, 40 years, but it's accelerating. And so what we're seeing now is power concentrated in the hands of a few white, wealthy men, and they have taken over the security apparatus. So Dan Gilbert essentially has his own police force in downtown Detroit. It's extremely dangerous. I'm very concerned about it.
So, I mean, it's things that the city doesn't know. The mayor released the open data portal that a lot of residents don't have access to. 40% of Detroiters don't have access to the internet, yet Dan Gilbert, I hate to keep bringing him up, but Rocket Fiber's being launched as this great phenomenon that's going to go 100 times faster than only the 60% of Detroit that has access to the internet. So, I mean, we have to think about these things. People really, really need to go utilize these public libraries, do your research, get in the know, and don't just go to the polls and vote for anybody. I mean, these people, you know, the lesser of two evils is not good enough. Put somebody in office that's going to represent your interests.
I hope that the ultimate takeaway of this conversation today and of this week of shows that we've taped is accountability. In a word, that's what we're talking about here. The city will ultimately come back. It's a great city. You are a resilient group of citizens. There's no doubt in my mind that the city is going to come back and be greater than it ever was. I believe that. But greater for whom? You know, who is this turnaround going to be in behalf of? These are legitimate questions. And so I hope that, that the country, as a result of these shows that we've taped here, will be better informed, will be empowered with information about what's happening in Detroit. I hope there are some policies and practices that people will see us talking about this week that might even work in other municipalities around the country. But I want to close on this note. I said this on day one. I close on this now. People have a cosmic connection to this city. Americans have a cosmic connection to the city if they've never been here. Forget living here. If they've never even been here, there's a cosmic connection to this city. What do you mean, Tavis? We're connected to you through the music. We're connected through the food. We're connected through the art. We're connected through the sports legends. And we are clearly connected through the cars that we drive. Americans are connected cosmically to this city. So there are a whole bunch of us, as evidenced by my presence here this week and those who will watch these shows this week, there are a whole lot of us who are pulling and praying and rooting for the city of Detroit to rebound in the way that we know that it can. So to Detroit Public Television, to Wayne State University, to the guests here today, to all the guests this week, and to the audience who's turned out to see these tapings, thank you all for coming. Have a great rest of the day. Love you, Detroit.